Why is it every time I decide to semi-retire, the entire market crashes, the economy goes to shit, and everything just generally sucks? Well, I'm in Canada and it's snowing. Here's a good footnote. I noticed over the past week or so that everybody was whining about the EBT thing. By the way, in Canada, they don't have EBT. It ain't like they don't have poor people. They just don't have EBT. Um, and as far as I know from now, I'm not Canadian, so I can't give you all the details, but from what I gather, there is a low income thing, but it's very hard to get. As far as there is a welfare system, but it's very, very picky. So there's that. That being said, enough of the Canadian politics. Let's talk about semi retirement in the worst economy of my lifetime. Yeah. So I'm noticing just things online. Now, keep in mind, I'm not in the United States right now, and I haven't been since I started retiring. I'm in Canada with my girlfriend. I do go back into the truck later on this month after I turn 50. It's great. Um, so I can't tell you what it's like from my perspective now. I have to go with what I've seen on the internet. And of course, what I see on the internet is everything's shit. People are whining on their iPhones that they can't afford food or how to live and all of that stuff. And just video after video of people whining and bitching that life sucks. Look, I don't have an income at this particular moment. I get it when I go back to work. Um, but I also haven't spent a lot of money. Like I spent a lot of time just not going out. So one of the keys, if you're broke as fuck, don't leave the house. Pretend it's COVID. Pretend it was like it was during the lockdown. And guess what? You don't spend as much money. You have to cook at home, you entertain yourself at home. Every time you leave the house and get in your vehicle, it's going to cost you a fucking fortune. That's just the world we live in at this point. We have to adapt. You can't change it. Getting on the internet and crying about it ain't going to change anything. The corporations got all your money. Except they're losing it in the stock market now. Like crypto has been a bloodbath for the past week. Like I'm sitting there, I'm hodling, but it's not fun to watch your entire fucking portfolio take a big dump, which is what's happened to me. But times are hard. You got to adapt. The government ain't going to do it for you. You can be political all you want. You can vote. They just put a communist in New York City, and now all the wealthy people are fleeing and moving to Florida. It's people don't think this way. Everything has consequences. That being said, New York City's fallen and will continue to decline economically, as most left-oriented governments seem to do. Point out a successful left city. Point out one it's safe, economically thriving. Point it out. Where they don't have tents on the sidewalk and all that kind of shit. But we have to adapt because no one's looking out for you. Democrats have never improved everything, and Republicans clearly aren't improving the economy as well. So you got to look out for you. And that means the only thing you have control over is your spending. And you might have to give up some lifestyle at this point. As entitled as we are still the wealthiest country in the world. There are people that are climbing walls and swimming through rivers to try and get here and get a piece of our wealth and bring it back to their country. even though we're all broke as fuck, allegedly. And the reason we're broke as fuck is we're all the debt is crazy. Everyone's swiping credit cards and they're handing out credit like candy. And that is a bad thing. That means we are in for an economic collapse, whether we like it or not. So we better start practicing for that before it hits. You know, when you know a hurricane's coming or a tornado or whatever, you get a warning, you start putting sandbags up and getting pumps around so you can pump the water out of your basement, you know, that kind of stuff. You start preparing, boarding up windows. We're at that point, people, I feel like, based on what I'm seeing on the internet. Like I said, I'm not in the US. I could tell you here in Canada, things are bad economically here as well. For example, right now I'm in here driving my girlfriend around because she's doing gig economy as a second job to shore up her income because she's struggling a little bit. So that's what we're doing. I'm driving her around so she doesn't have any vehicle costs. And she's doing basically she's doing a delivery app, shop and deliver type thing. I don't like to go into specifics about that, but you know, eating cheap food. You can still find cheap food, but it's not going to be meat. That's the other thing. I really am starting to miss being able to eat as much beef as I did. But it's expensive. $20 a pound. Even here in Canada, that's not a tariff thing. They got their own cows here, so I don't understand it. And it's getting up there in the U.S. $20 a pound for a ribeye as well. And you already know my Wigman's roast beef story. So we got to eat less meat, which means we're not going to be as healthy. I know, but that's what the corporations want. The next step is eat the bugs. We're probably going to get to the eat the bugs thing if the economy collapses. We got jobs just melting. Like, you know, it's bad when Walmart puts a hiring freeze on. They'll usually hire anybody. You know, so there's a meltdown in the job market. A lot of it based on AI, Amazon. You know, I'm from what I've been seeing in the headlines, 600,000 people are about to be where I'm at, trying to, and I don't want to go back to work, but they want to work. You know, I want to retire, and semi-retirement's about all I'm good for now. I'm not going to get wealthy anytime soon. And from the looks of it, the market's about to have a major crash, you know, 2008 style. And that could last a couple years before my portfolio bounces back. I'm not doing smart. I'm not doing the dumb things. I'm still buying when I can. Right now, I don't have any capital to buy, but when I do work, I am going to put a percentage of it in the market, especially if we're in a bear market and things are down. But every time these crashes happen, there's always a lot of shit on the internet. Like, this is the big one. This is the one we don't bounce back from. And we're all fucked. It's never coming back. And then it comes back. You're not going to do that to me this time. You've done it to me in several other markets, and I've lost thousands of dollars because of it, because I sold at the bottom. And then lo and behold, within a week of me selling at the bottom, everything skyrockets again. So I'm diamond hands on this one. Although I can say the emotions of watching the numbers go down is not fun. And if an emergency pops up, I'm going to take a loss because I'm going to have to sell some of that. I'm hoping that doesn't happen, you know, because that compounds the cost of whatever the emergency is. But yeah, that's my plan, is to keep buying, even though everything is not looking good in the crypto space. And the stock market is also, the S&P's been going down slowly as well, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5%. But I think we're in for a 20% bottom on the, like a, you know, it's going back up to where its all-time high was, I feel like, and then it's going to crash, I feel like, at some point. At some point, the stockholders and the corporations are going to have to realize that you're taking a loss. It's gone. The money is gone. No one's buying shit. You're all just gambling your way into a pyramid scheme on the fucking stock market with no real underlying value for the companies or assets that you're trading. You know, an asset or a company is only as good as people are valuing it. And if companies start going bankrupt because there's no consumers, I feel like the way things have been going, we've been adjusting for the loss in consumers because everyone's broke and can't afford to buy extra shit, by giving them more credit so they still buy extra shit. Well, that's great in the short term, and it's really great for those who like to take those eggs and put them in various assets and become owners of different things. But it's not so good for the person living paycheck to paycheck that's swiping their credit card all the fucking time. That's going to be where everything crashes. That's the 2008 only with everything. Instead of just being housing, which will also be affected because that's been in a bubble for a while. And from what I can tell, it's already crashing in some areas. People are going to take a bath because they bought at the top. They bought their real estate at the top, and now it's going to crash, and there's going to be bankruptcies all over the place. It's, people are losing their cars. People are starting to hit their credit limits, and they're starting to default. And the more they default, eventually these credit card companies, banks, and mortgage holders are all going to have to capitulate that they fucked up. And that's going to send a nice 50% crash in the stock market and put us in a depression. I feel like we're all the ingredients seem in for a depression. So prepare. I'm prepared. I'm already learning to live broke. Granted it's half and half, but if this economic crash happens, then my trucking income's going to go to shit. Gig economy income's going to go to shit because people won't be able to afford luxury because delivery is a luxury. Same thing with getting rides. Well, Uber will probably still be all right, but I don't really want to do Uber if I don't have to. But even then, you're going to have a flood of drivers. Let's see. Right now in the U.S., there's a bunch of immigrants who are being flushed out of the trucking industries and being deported. So these are creating employment gaps in the gig economy market and trucking. There's no shortage because there's not as much freight thanks to our economy, but it's going to even out for truck drivers, I feel like. But right now, a lot of the people that are leaving trucking are going to jump into gig economies. They're going to be in cargo vans, hauling shit. They're going to do all kinds of things to skirt around and still make the money. And at the end of the day, they're going to make the same money doing that as they were in the truck because they were not paying the truck drivers properly for the time. Like the truck driver would have to not sleep. They would do team loads solo, stuff that's dangerous. Well, now they're going to be in U-Hauls and cargo vans and rentals and all of that kind of shit. And they're going to be buying accounts from gig economy apps so that they can run, and then somebody that's selling that, is taking a piece off of the top of that, and that's minimum wage at best usually anyway. So now they're going to be making less than minimum wage, tearing up a rental vehicle. It's crazy how the economic collapse will snowball to where it's hard to even make money on your own. So. But I hope I'm wrong. I hope I get back to the U.S. and everybody's still shopping and eating out and doing all the things that they should be doing. I have seen, before I came back here, no sign of that. People were still eating out. People, restaurants were still busy in my town. And Syracuse isn't exactly a economic hub yet, although they are fixing to have a Micron open a plant there. And as we know, the current administration is very bullish on data centers and chips and all of that kind of shit, and making our own infrastructure to support that. So might be good news for Syracuse, but of course the lefties will fuck all of that up and take all the money in taxes instead of letting it trickle out to the population. As we've seen in New York City. That's, the mentality. You can't change the mentality in some places because no matter how bad things get, they just blame Trump, when it's really, you got to look at the power of your local government over your situation as well. The New York fucking governor, Hochul, and it was funny that they ran Cuomo against this guy. I'm like, that seems intentional. I think they put Cuomo up against him so that this guy won, because Cuomo got ejected from the left. They were like, no, you can't do all of that, masochistic shit and be in charge of shit. Um, sorry, I gotta keep an eye out for when she's done with her shopping. But I'm in Gatineau right now, by the way, which is all French. It's like Ottawa on one side of the river and Gatineau on the other. So I'm getting a nice little tour of everything doing this gig economy shit. So, but as far as me, I've just been hunkering down, not spending money, having zero spend days. I buy some cheap ass groceries uh, because I don't want to be a burden on my girlfriend. And, sometimes I buy her some cheap ass groceries as well. And we're just trying to not go anywhere, not spend money. That's the thing. You understand that that's your power over inflation. Nobody seems to get it. If you're running around with your credit card when you're broke, buying all kinds of shit, you're just contributing to inflation. If you just stay home, appreciate what you already got, maybe dust off something that you bought that's been sitting on a shelf that used to entertain you. Well, maybe it's time to revisit some of your old hobbies or some, and stop constantly buying the bigger, better shit. As far as entertainment wise, I've got enough entertainment to last me the rest of my life. Sorry for the truck van running. I've got enough entertainment to last me the rest of my life. Like, I'm going to straight up, I've got my laptop. Actually, I have two laptops. I have a fucking all the gaming I would ever need. Uh, I've got my music and my music gear, and I've really got it all down to where I can take it wherever I go, too. That's the other thing. Most of my stuff I carry with me. I do have some things I keep at my mother's house. But other than that, I've been living out of a bag, so, it is how it is. It's how the trucker lifestyle I signed up for 21 years ago. Actually, I think it's 22 years now. Yeah, that's depressing. So yeah, I'm still a truck driver 22 years in. But that's all I'm doing on my downtime, is conserving my spending. So the principle, go out 3 weeks, 4 weeks. It's going to be 4 weeks because we need some specific times that I'm off. So I'm going to be out 4 weeks for a full month on the road, about halfway through this month. Pay the bills, try and pay down some of the debt, invest some, rinse, repeat, and then have this balance where I take 3 weeks off, maybe 4 weeks off if I need to, and just back and forth, essentially working 6 months out of the year, when you break it down. And that's also, I'll be spending a lot of time in Canada on my off time because that fits right in with that, because you're only allowed, as a U.S. citizen, to be, unless you have some kind of special visa or you have property or some other shit, you're only allowed 6 months out of the year in the country. So, and you can't work here without a work visa. So it's pretty much, yeah, you're pretty much just stuck. Obviously I could make content, which would help financially, but let's face it, this thing makes me maybe $100 a month on YouTube. And I haven't been cranking out content because I just needed to take some downtime this last week. I'm a little under the weather because of my social life and the fact that I lost my best friend. I'm still dealing with that. It's not fun. I feel like now I've pulled myself into my relationship and that's all I got, as far as my socialness goes. How sometimes you get in a relationship and then that's what your world becomes and all your friends kind of fade to the background. Well, add that in with the fact that I'm never in Syracuse anymore and do the math, like people forget about you when you're gone, I guess. So there's that, but it's fine. I don't, if I don't have a lot of friends, I don't have to worry about them dying, and I've had a few too many of them die lately. So leaving all that aside, I'm going to continue to try and make this work in spite of how bad things are getting economically. I'm spending maybe $100 a week on average on what I'm doing food wise here because my dollar goes a little farther on some things. I still get the 30% currency discount here. That's the other thing. It's going to give me a little profit because I go in the US, I earn the money, I come over here and I spend it. So some things that are priced up accordingly, so I don't like get a discount on like fuel. Fuel here is more expensive. But on other things, food I find I can get at a better price. Also, any fast food or stuff like that, I tend to get a decent price on. Like a $5 Canadian coffee over here is really actually cheaper than what I pay in the US. So there's that. Plus, they got Tim Hortons everywhere, which is my favorite coffee. So yeah, I'm maximizing my situation and minimizing the amount of time I work. And that's the other thing. I'm not paying as much taxes that way. The more you work, the more they take. That's the thing. If I bust my ass for 70 hours a week, 20 hours of that is going to the government. If I'm not busting my ass, then they're not doing it. All right, hold on. So apparently the Canadian economy is doing all right. You can tell that by the big empty parking lot. Of course, even Michael's in the United States seems to have big empty parking lots. But yeah, we're on stop 2 of the delivery. So as I've been, the general theme of this video is preparing for the worst, because I do feel like it is going to happen at this point. All of the signs and symptoms are there. It's just people haven't hit their credit limit yet. So until the credit card companies and the banks tighten up credit requirements and just really hunker down, or until everyone hits their limit and starts defaulting, that'll be about the time the crash is. That'll be the last straw for the economy. And that'll be when everything crashes, including the stock market and corporations. But just remember what you have control over, your spending and your lifestyle. If you're in a $50,000, this one $84,000 if I just make the minimum payments, and pay the insurance as it continues to go up. If you're in a vehicle like this, you're spending too much money on that. If you're filming yourself on one of these, you're spending too much money on that. And start looking at selling things, start looking at downsizing your life. You're going to need to downsize your life. And if you do it before the crash, then you're in a better position, I feel like. And also, I would take stock of any hard assets you have. Like I have some camera gear and some stuff like that I could easily sell. But the problem is, if the economy crashes, not everyone's lining up to buy that unless you can find some wealthy people who don't give a fuck, or some people whose credit cards still work. But take stock of the hard assets. And if you have hard assets that provide food, provide, any kind of income, think about it. It's going to get, during this time, as things get hard, there are still going to be people that need things, need services. And if you can provide those services, that puts you in an advantage. Think barter system too. That's the other thing. If you know somebody who grows their own food and maybe they need something that you can do, think of your skill set. It doesn't cost you anything to learn skills, really. The entire internet is in your pocket. See what you can monetize in your life. Income streams, lots of income streams. I have multiple income streams, even when I'm trucking. What can you do to get passive income? Any passive income helps, even if it's just a few dollars here and there. You take that few dollars and you put it in the market, especially if the market's crashed. Keep in mind, when these major economic crashes happen, that can turn you into a millionaire if you have capital to buy assets during that. Because everything's going to be on sale. All the stocks will be on sale. All the crypto will be on sale. Everything will be low. It's not financial advice. Lord knows I'm not the fucking person to talk to about that. But that's how I view it, is preparing, you know, and I've missed the bus in 2008. I should have been buying like a fucking madman during that crash, and I'd be retired today had I done it. So keep that in mind as we face this next crash. Part of preparing for that, downsize your lifestyle. And as you look at the blood in the streets on Wall Street and how the stock market's crashing, then you should be, in my opinion, buying. But the fuck do I know? And it's going to feel so counterintuitive because a lot of times when these crashes happen, you'll go in and you'll say, I'm buying the dip. And then it crashes even more. That's what's happening to me in crypto, by the way. Every time I put, some money in, last week I put some money in and well, guess what? It crashed even more. You just got to prepare for that. That's going to be how this works. But what the fuck do I know? I'm not an expert. I'm just an asshole. I do need you in the comments to tell me, how's things looking in the economy around you? What are you seeing? Are people still shopping? People still spending time in restaurants? Is your grocery bill out of control? I'm tired of just relying on TikTok videos from fucking people that are whining with their iPhones about how their EBT got cut off. I want to hear from you guys, how are things going for you? How are you surviving this continuing inflation and this reduction in employment that seems to be going on? How's your job been affected? I want to know because I'm not in the US right now, so I can't look with my own eyes and determine and balance. And it's kind of sucky that way, like not being able to see that with my own eyes if it's good or bad. So let me know in the comments, how is the economy doing? Am I coming back to a complete collapsed United States when I come back to work? It's depressing. But I'm ready to hunker down for a nice, good economic crash. And I'll be figuring out every little fucking way to survive I can. And if it all collapses and I'm bankrupt at that point, then that's what it is. But I'm still trying to do everything right. Still trying. Pay down the debt without running it up again. That's going to be the challenge, only working 6 months out of the year. I don't know. But as far as the market, I have zero trading going on right now because it's just too fucked up. And I'm just watching people in crypto get absolutely destroyed who are leveraged, up to their eyeballs buying, shorting or longing the market, and then the market swings to liquidate all of their positions. So trading is probably a bad time to trade. It's a great time, I feel like, to do the Warren Buffett dollar cost average. The more further down it goes, the more you buy. That's how it is. Anyways, my girlfriend's coming. Remember, I'm not an expert. I'm just an asshole. Please like and subscribe for more shit, and I'll make more shit. And think about becoming a channel member because, if you're not broke, because that helps me make more content. Have a nice motherfucking day and shit.